Imagine for a second that you're standing inside a cave in the Himalayas.
Okay, setting a scene.
Yeah, it's freezing, the air is super thin, and you are staring at this sheer rock wall. But there is something completely wrong with it.
Wrong how?
There's a handprint indented deeply into the solid stone. And I don't mean it's carved. It's not chiseled with a tool. It looks exactly like someone took their hand and just pressed it into the rock, like the stone was made of soft, wet clay.
Right. It's a really striking image.
Yeah.
And I mean, for anyone familiar with Eastern lore, you're talking about the legend of Milarepa, the 11th century yogi.
Exactly. The story goes that he pressed his hand into the rock to basically demonstrate to his student that the physical world, all this stuff we think is so solid and unchangeable, is actually malleable.
It's the ultimate mind over matter mic drop.
It really is.
And usually, we keep stories like that comfortably in the mythology section of the bookstore. We treat it as a metaphor.
Right, like a nice parable.
Yeah, but today we're looking at a book that tries to drag that concept out of mythology and just shove it right under the microscope of biology.
We are doing a deep dive into Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And I have to say up front, this book is, it's a lot.
It is a heavy hitter.
It's thick, it's dense, and it's basically asking the question, can we do what Milarepa did? Obviously, maybe not melting rocks with our bare hands. But can common people, you, me, the listener, can we do the uncommon?
Dispenza is essentially bridging two very different worlds here. He is taking the, I guess you could call it the woo of mysticism and trying to back it up with hard data.
Like neuroscience, quantum physics.
Epigenetics, exactly. The central premise is that we are not actually bound by our biology. We can rewrite our genetic destiny and heal our bodies just by changing our minds.
Which, to be totally honest, triggers my skepticism alarm right out of the gate.
Sure, it sounds a bit like Secret on steroids. Like, just think happy thoughts and your disease will go away.
Right. But the mission for this deep dive is to see if the science actually holds water. We want to unpack the actual mechanisms here.
How does a thought become a physical protein in the body?
Exactly. How do we break the cycle of what he calls the familiar past to create a new future?
And to understand that, we really have to start with the barrier. Like, the reason we aren't all walking around being supernatural right now is that we are quite literally addicted to the past.
Yeah, he outlines this concept of the loop.
The thinking, feeling loop.
I found this part fascinating, but also, honestly, slightly insulting.
Insulting. Why?
Because it felt like he was watching me in the morning, like he was in my house.
Well, let's break that down, because it really is the baseline for how most humans operate. It starts with the relationship between the brain and the body.
Okay.
You have a thought. And that thought isn't just a wispy, invisible cloud in your head. It triggers an actual chemical reaction. The brain releases specific chemical signals that your body then interprets as an emotion.
So if I think, I'm worried about this upcoming meeting, my brain physically dumps stress chemicals into my system.
Right. But here's the trap. Once the body feels that stress, it sends a signal back up to the brain saying, hey, we are feeling stress down here.
And the brain says, oh, understood.
Exactly. So the brain generates more stressful thoughts to match the feeling, which produces more chemicals.
Which produces more thoughts.
It's a closed feedback loop. Thinking creates feeling, and feeling creates thinking.
And Dispenza's argument is that if you cannot think greater than how you feel, you are trapped. You're thinking in the past.
You are chemically reinforcing the exact same state of being over and over again.
And he says the body eventually becomes the unconscious mind,
Yeah.
which sounds kind of abstract until you look at the morning routine.
Right, the robot mode.
Walk us through this, because this is where I felt personally attacked.
Think about it. You wake up, what is the very first thing you do?
I turn off the alarm, I groan, I reach for my phone.
And you check your apps.
WhatsApp, Instagram, email. Then I stumble into the kitchen to the coffee machine.
Do you have to actively think about any of that?
Not at all. I could do it with my eyes closed.
Exactly. Your body knows how to do it better than your conscious brain does. It is a programmed habit.
You're on autopilot.
Right. And by running that same routine, seeing the same people, drinking the same coffee, feeling the exact same annoyance at the exact same traffic, you are collapsing your reality into a completely predictable future.
Because I'm expecting the day to be the same as yesterday, so my body physically prepares for it to be the same.
You are just dragging yesterday into today.
Man, and here is where the biology gets messy, right? Because this loop is usually fueled by stress.
When we are stressed, we release cortisol and adrenaline. Now, out in the wild, that is a superpower. If a tiger chases you, you need that massive energy dump to either run away or fight.
But the tiger eventually gives up or eats you. Either way, the stress ends.
True. But in the modern world, the predator isn't a tiger. It's a passive-aggressive email from your boss.
Or a traffic jam.
Or the news notification that just popped up on your phone. The predator is literally in your pocket. It never goes away.
So we just stay in that high alert survival state permanently.
And Dispenza argues that we actually become addicted to those stress hormones. We use the problems in our lives to get a chemical fix.
Wait, you're saying we actually want the stress? That sounds totally counterintuitive. I mean, everyone tells you they want to be relaxed.
We say we want to be relaxed, but the body craves the rush. It's why you might find yourself doom-scrolling the news at midnight or picking a fight with your partner over absolutely nothing.
We need that hit of adrenaline just to feel normal.
Exactly, just like a smoker needs nicotine.
That is incredibly dark. It means we are subconsciously sabotaging our own peace just to feed a chemical habit.
It completely explains why change is so incredibly hard. It isn't just a willpower issue. It is a physical withdrawal. And there's a huge cost to this addiction. When you are in survival mode, you become a materialist.
Meaning I'm obsessed with buying stuff.
No, meaning you become obsessed with the material world. Your focus narrows. You get hyper-focused on your body, your immediate environment, and time.
Like, where is the danger? How much time do I have? Am I in pain?
Right, which makes perfect sense biologically. If I'm being chased by a tiger, I really shouldn't be daydreaming about my 5-year plan. I should be looking at the tiger.
Fair enough.
But here is the kicker. Where attention goes, energy flows. That is a core maxim of the book. If all your attention is forced outward onto your problems, your pain, your schedule, you are siphoning your energy away from your inner world.
You're just draining the battery.
You're draining the battery entirely on the known. You have zero energy left for creation. You have no energy left to heal. You are just maintaining the status quo of the past.
Okay, so we're basically batteries being drained by our own stress addiction, stuck in a biological loop. How on earth do we break that? Because just think positive clearly isn't enough if the body is physically addicted to the negative.
And this brings us to mental rehearsal. This is the part where the skeptics usually check out, so we really need to look at the data here. Dispenza cites the Harvard Piano Study, which is an absolute classic in neuroplasticity.
I love this study. But play devil's advocate for a second. How can merely thinking about something physically change the brain?
Let's look at what they actually did. They took volunteers who had never played piano before. Group A physically practiced a simple 5-finger scale for 2 hours a day for 5 days.
Okay, standard physical practice.
Group B just sat there. They closed their eyes and mentally rehearsed playing the exact same scale.
They didn't move their hands at all.
Didn't move a muscle. They just imagined the feeling of the keys, the sound of the notes, the physical movement in their mind.
And what was the result?
At the end of the 5 days, the brain scans were identical. Both groups had developed the exact same new neurological circuits in the region of the brain that controls finger movement.
So the brain literally could not tell the difference between the physical act and the imagined act.
It didn't know the difference. To the brain, the experience was real. And because it perceived it as real, it built the hardware to support it. But the wild thing is, it goes further than just brain maps. It actually affects the body.
You're talking about the muscle studies now.
Yeah. There was a fascinating study done at the Cleveland Clinic. Subjects were asked to imagine flexing their biceps as hard as they possibly could, just pure mental intensity. They saw a 13.5% increase in actual physical muscle strength.
Without lifting a single weight.
Without lifting a gram. There's another one with people in casts. They had immobilized wrists. The group that visualized flexing their wrists were twice as strong as the control group when the casts finally came off.
That is just wild. It basically implies that thoughts are actual biological signals.
They are. And this is a perfect segue into epigenetics. We used to think genes were destiny. Like, my dad had heart disease, so I'm doomed.
Right, the genetic lottery.
But epigenetics shows us that the gene is really just a blueprint. You need a contractor to read the blueprint and actually build the house.
And that contractor is the environment.
Yes. But Dispenza argues that the internal environment, meaning your emotions, is the primary signal that tells the gene what to do. If you are constantly swimming in stress hormones, you are signaling your genes to break down. You're signaling for disease.
But if we can trick the brain with mental rehearsal, like with the piano or the biceps, can we signal the genes for health?
That is the working theory. And they actually tested it. In a workshop in Tacoma, they measured IgA, that's immunoglobulin A. It's a primary immune system protein.
Okay.
They asked the participants to to practice elevating their emotions,
Hmm.
really feeling love, joy, gratitude for just 10 minutes, 3 times a day.
Just sitting there and feeling grateful. No external drugs or supplements.
Just emotional regulation,
Right.
purely internal. In 4 days, the average IgA levels shot up by 49.5%.
A 50% boost in immune strength just by changing their internal state? That's incredible.
It essentially proves that we aren't victims of our genetics. We can actively be masters of our own chemistry.
Which sounds absolutely fantastic in a controlled scientific study. But I want to talk about Anna Willems, because her story is really the emotional core of this book, and it's where the rubber sort of meets the road. It's one thing to boost your immune system a little bit at a workshop. It's another thing entirely to face what she faced.
Anna's story is heavy. She was a successful psychotherapist living in Amsterdam. And in 2007, her husband committed suicide. No warning whatsoever. He left her in financial ruin with 2 young children to raise.
Just a complete, absolute shattering of her reality.
Completely. And as we discussed earlier, she immediately went into survival mode, but she stayed there. She was marinating in guilt, shame, and fear every single day.
Because that was her new normal.
She was addicted to the suffering because, in a tragic way, it was the only way she felt she could stay connected to the memory of their husband.
And then her body eventually just broke.
It totally collapsed. First, she developed neuritis, which resulted in paralysis from the waist down. Then she got severe ulcers in her mucous membranes. And finally, she was diagnosed with esophageal cancer.
It is literally that addiction to stress manifesting as a complete physical breakdown.
She was checking every single box for a downward spiral. She lost her house. She ended up in an abusive relationship. She hit absolute rock bottom. And that is the exact moment she made a decision. She decided to uncreate her life.
That phrase gave me chills when I read it, uncreate her life. But what did she actually do? Because she is paralyzed and has cancer. It's not like she can just go for a run to clear her head.
Well, she stopped the traditional treatments, which weren't working anyway, and she started meditating deeply. But here is the crucial nuance. This is what separates Dispenza's work from just taking a relaxing bath. She refused to get up from her meditation until she felt completely in love with life.
Hold on. How do you feel in love with life when you are broke, grieving, paralyzed, and have cancer? That feels impossible.
That is the work. That is the becoming supernatural part. The external reality gave her zero reason to feel any joy. But she realized that if she waited for her life to get better before she felt gratitude, she was going to die.
She understood the science.
She did. She knew she had to signal her genes ahead of the environment.
She had to feel the gratitude to actually cause the healing, rather than waiting for the healing to cause the gratitude.
Exactly. She mentally rehearsed her future health with such absolute intensity that her body began to believe it was already healed. She was hacking the loop.
And the outcome.
Complete remission. The cancer was gone, the paralysis gone, the ulcers gone. She ended up building a new practice. She found new relationships, achieved financial independence. She literally became a new person. The old personality had the disease. The new personality did not.
It's an unbelievable story. But to do that, to really disconnect from your physical reality the way Anna did, Dispenza talks about having to access the quantum field.
Now, this is where I am going to need you to be our guide, because we are leaving biology and entering physics. And frankly, this is where I think a lot of people get lost.
It definitely gets abstract, but it is rooted in a very basic principle of quantum mechanics. Think about an electron. In high school physics, Newtonian physics, we are taught to think of an electron like a tiny little solid planet orbiting a nucleus. Solid, predictable matter.
Like a little solar system.
But in the quantum world, that is not how it works at all. An electron doesn't actually exist as a specific particle in a specific place until it is observed.
The observer effect.
Right. Until you look at it, it exists merely as a wave of probability. It is everywhere and nowhere all at once. It's just a cloud of potential.
So before I look at it, it's just possibility.
Exactly. And Dispenza calls this the quantum field. It is an invisible field of frequency and information that exists beyond our concepts of space and time. His argument is this: if you want to change your reality, you cannot do it with matter.
You can't fix matter with matter. Right. You can't just forcefully move objects around in the 3D world to fix your life. You have to go to the source code. You have to enter the field where everything is just a wave of pure probability.
But there's a huge catch. You can't take your luggage with you into the field.
No luggage allowed.
Yeah.
You cannot take your body, your identity, your face, your past trauma, or your mortgage. To enter this field, You have to become what he calls nobody, no one, no thing, nowhere, and no time.
He calls it the void.
The void. It's a state of pure consciousness. When you take all your attention off the material world, off the known, you stop draining that battery we talked about earlier. You return all your energy back to the realm of possibility. You stop being a fixed particle in space, and you revert to being a wave.
And that is where you can create a new future, because you just aren't tethered to the past anymore.
Precisely. And interestingly enough, they claim to actually measure this phenomenon in their live workshops. They use a device called a GDV machine. It looks kind of like a Sputnik antenna, and it measures ambient electromagnetic fields in a room.
And what do they see when they measure it?
When a massive room full of people enters this no-thing state together, the ambient energy in the room actually drops at first.
Why does it drop?
Because everyone is drawing their energy back into their own personal fields. They're reclaiming that siphoned energy from the external world. But then, as the entire group becomes biologically and emotionally coherent, the energy in the room completely spikes. They are literally manipulating the electromagnetic field around them.
So we upgrade our operating system from mere survival to actual creation.
Exactly.
But the book takes one final, very steep turn. We have to talk about the pineal gland. And I'm going to be totally honest with you. This is the part where I was like, okay, Dr. Joe, you are losing me here.
You definitely aren't alone in that. It gets very mystical here.
He shares this highly personal experience where he's in a deep meditation and he has a vision.
He does. He sees his pineal gland, which is this tiny little gland right in the center of the brain. He sees it as a 3D knob, and it's releasing this milky substance. And then suddenly, he sees a pocket watch.
A pocket watch.
It represents the illusion of linear time. He realizes in that moment that everything, the past, the present, and the future, is all happening simultaneously in the eternal now.
And suddenly he's not just sitting on his couch anymore. He is essentially time traveling.
In a way, yes. He experiences 3 separate times all at once. He sees a past incarnation where he was a philosopher who was being tortured for his beliefs. He's actively watching it happen. But simultaneously, he is experiencing a future version of himself.
The future Joe.
Walking barefoot in the cold, feeling this immense electric energy, just intensely in love with life. And this future Joe turns around and looks back through a window.
At the present Joe sitting in the kitchen.
Exactly. It completely breaks our linear perception of time. But the main takeaway Dispenza wants us to get from this isn't just, wow, what a cool, trippy vision. It is the mechanism behind it. He argues the pineal gland actually acts as a biological transducer.
A transducer? Like a radio receiver?
That's the perfect analogy. Think about it right now. There are Wi-Fi signals and radio waves bouncing all around the room you were sitting in. You can't see them, you can't hear them. But if you have a receiver like a smartphone or a radio boo, you can tune in and turn those completely invisible waves into pictures and sound.
Okay, I follow that.
Dispenza argues the pineal gland is the human brain's quantum receiver. When we finally stop focusing on survival and we free up all that trapped energy, we basically power up this dormant antenna. It picks up frequencies from the quantum field and transduces them into profound imagery and actual biological signals.
So it's like upgrading our hardware to pick up a completely new channel.
A channel that is broadcasting a reality much, much bigger than just the physical 3D world we live in.
It is really a lot to process. We have gone from mindlessly checking emails in the morning to bending time and space with the pineal gland. But if we try to pull this all back down to earth for a minute, what is the core message here? Because I think most of us aren't actively trying to have a mystical, time-bending vision. We just want to be a bit less stressed and maybe a bit healthier.
The core message is simply that you are not a victim. That is the absolute bottom line of all his work. You're not a victim of your genetic code. You're not a victim of your past trauma. And you certainly aren't a victim of your automatic morning routine.
We just spend so much of our lives living completely in the past. We think the exact same thoughts, which makes us feel the exact same feelings, and then we sit around and wonder why our life always looks exactly the same.
And true creation, true lasting change, requires stepping actively into the unknown. It requires extreme discomfort. It means ignoring the physical senses that are screaming, I'm sick, or I'm broke, or I'm exhausted, and deliberately tuning into a vision of a future that hasn't even happened yet.
It's practicing the future until it actually becomes the present.
Precisely. You have to marry a crystal clear intention with a highly elevated emotion. That is the fundamental formula.
So here's a final thought for you to chew on as you go about the rest of your day. We talked about Anna's incredible healing, and we talked about that future Joe vision. The entire premise of this deep dive is that there is a future version of you who is already healthy, already wealthy, and already completely free. And they exist right now in that quantum field of possibility.
They are just waiting for you.
They are waiting for you to match their energy. So the question you have to ask yourself is this: what thought do you need to stop thinking today, right now, to finally find them?
That really is the question.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. We will see you in the next one.